Hello, everyone. This is John Galt speaking, here with a live stream video where we're going to talk about the update to the teams and class select template that I have on the UE4 marketplace. So I got that finished, I got it updated, I got it uploaded, and it is now compatible with engine version 4.15 all the way through the current engine version, which is 4.24.3, I believe. So it was a pretty significant update, okay? And there's a lot of changes and stuff that I made, removed a lot of stuff that kind of muddied up the template, and really it was things that shouldn't have been in there in the first place, but they just happened to be put in there anyway. And I also reduced the cost to $5.99, and that's where it's going to remain. The Capture the Flag template is also $5.99. I mentioned in other videos that I was going to increase the cost to $9.99, which is what it was originally. But I just decided to leave them at $5.99 because I do have some more templates that are going to be put on the marketplace at some point that are going to be a little bit more expensive, but they're also going to include a lot more stuff. Okay, and all these are also going to be made to conform with each other. Okay, so that'll be a big help when you guys buy my stuff and you look through it to kind of see how I accomplish these things. It'll be consistent across each of my projects. So I have a packaged build of the teams and class select here that we're going to look at, and this is going to be an overview kind of video, so we're not really going to get into the meat and potatoes of how you manipulate this template and change it and modify it and all that stuff. Those videos will be coming at a later date. This is really just to talk about what this template is, what it's for, and what it's meant to do. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this packaged build here. This is actually, I already mentioned this, but this is in the most current engine version. So this is in 4.24.3. So it does include a single player option, which if you go ahead and just click it, it brings up a team select, and then you can pick a class. And then the moment that you pick the class, it spawns you into the level on the team that you chose. Okay. The thing about this is there is no way any other players can join you at this point. Okay. So this is something that I just put in here for people who just want to play, but not, have people host or have people have the ability to locate and join the server. Okay, and so let me go ahead and just get back to the main menu here. And when you hit the multiplayer button, this is where you have the ability to host or find games. So I'm going to go ahead and host a game. And there are some options in here, just some little options that you can manipulate before you actually host the game. So you can decide which map you want to start on. You can also change the amount of players that are allowed. Now, if you set it to only be one, that means no one else will be able to find you and join your server. I just went ahead and put that in there as a default option. Essentially, it would be effectively the same thing as doing single player, but not really. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just set this to 8. There is a match timer included in this, and you can change it at what length the matches will be. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to 5 minutes and then hit host game. And then when you actually are in here, this is once again, you can pick your team. So I'm going to go ahead and put this guy on red team as an assault class. And first, let's just talk about all these things inside this template before we actually hook another player to it. So as with the same as with all my templates, it has a little bit of instructions here. So you can press the tab button and that will bring up your in-game menu. Now you do have a server admin option here. This will only show up on the host, right? So if a client's connected and he does this, he's not going to have access to this server admin settings. One thing to keep in mind is that map travel will only work in a standalone or a packaged build. So here's what that means. Since this is a packaged build, I can go in here and I could reload map 2, which is what we're on, or alternately, I could select map 1 and hit travel to map and then join back on, and now we're actually on test map 1 instead of 2, and it will bring the server and all the players connected with you. So really, I just put that in there for the server. You can also change the time limit in real time. So if I hit 5 minutes and hit set new time, you can see that the match timer at the top starts at 5 minutes. And then if you want to change it to 30, you can go right back in there. That's just something that the server can do if he wants to. Okay, so back to the instruction board. So the in-game menu is on a toggle. So if you press tab, you can hit tab again to close it. So tab opens it and closes it. Alternately, you could click resume and it does the exact same thing. P is for the player list. So I did implement a player list in here. This keeps track of all the players that are connected to the game. And the C on the beginning of the name indicates the class, right? And you can see that it has the little assault icon, right? So every player that's connected, it will actually show what class they are as well as what team they happen to be on. And this is also on a toggle, so you hit the P key to open it and close it. Z to force respawn, right? So you can hit the Z key and it will kill you and respawn you. It will pick a random spawn point of the team that you're on. So all these little spawn points here that you see, it will pick one of those at random and respawn you at that particular spawn point. Mouse look, right? So your mouse looks around, and then you have typical WSAD. It should have been WASD, but whatever. Dyslexia. To move along. And then I also put a little note in here saying that map travel only works in standalone or packaged builds. Okay, so we'll save that for the last. So there is a match timer and there is a score for the red team and the blue team, but there is no way to score in this template, right? That was something that was in the capture the flag template, but I went ahead and left all the logic in here with a note in the blueprint where you could tie into if you wanted to make it where you can actually score in this game. I put a little note in the blueprint to show you where you do that, right? All the logic's in there. You just have to call, from whatever it is that you want to increase the score, you call it and it will add the score, right? So I'll talk about that in another video, not the overview video. Okay, and then in the lower left-hand corner, you have your class icon and the name of your class. So this is an assault class. Now, when you hit your tab button, there is no way to switch your class in the in-game menu. That is on purpose, right? So what I did is I created these little actors here called character stations. And it's pretty simple, right? Character station, press E to use. So you go in this little station, you mash your E key, and this is what actually brings up the menu where you can change your class. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the biotech and then hit change class. And now you see that it would respawn me at this character station, and it updated the mesh of the character and the icon in the lower left-hand corner and the name. And then if you look in the player list, you see that it updates in there as well to indicate that I am now a biotech class. So there's 5 classes that you can pick, right? So you can pick an assault, a biotech, a dreadnought, an engineer, and a recon. So I'm going to go ahead and just click him over to the recon and hit change class. And there it updates all the information, the mesh and all that stuff. And if you happen to see, there's no weapon logic in here, right? So there's no way for me to kill a blue team player. And this is not meant to have it, right? This is meant for you guys to build your own weapon system on top of this template with all the core functionality that's already built into it. That's why it's $5.99. It's dirt cheap. It's got the essentials that you need. But see, if I built the combat system, it would not only increase the price of this project, it would also increase the complexity of trying to understand and understand how this template was built and how all these things work. And then I would have built a shooter game, but somebody else might have wanted a hack and slasher, and then that would have meant they would have had to just remove everything that I put in there just to build their own combat system. So I intentionally left it out, right? Now, of course, the blue team also has the exact same stuff. The difference is that if a red team player goes into the blue team station and tries to use it by pressing the E key, it ain't gonna do anything, right? Because it's team-based. You have to go to your station, which is on the red side. And even though there's no way for me to kill players, you can suicide, respawn yourself. So if you happen to be in a station and you get killed, I'm just going to simulate that by pressing the Z key. You won't respawn at this station that you were at. You will instead respawn at a random spawn point. The only time that you will respawn at this station is when you actually pick a different class and change, right? That way, you actually change at the station. But if you get killed while you're in the menu or anything like that, it's not going to respawn you at the station you're at. It's instead going to pick one of these random spawn points. Okay? See, if I come to this one and change, it will respawn me at this station. So there is that. Okay? And so that's essentially the meat and potatoes of this template. Now, before we hook up another player, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this lobby area. So this is not a lobby like a traditional game. This is not an area where players connect and they wait for other players to come join. When they get a certain amount of players, they then queue up, the server queues up and leaves and takes everybody to the mission or the match. That's not what this is. This is simply a little area that I designated where if you're not really out here wanting to play, you can bring up your menu, hit the lobby. It will kill you off the team that you're on and respawn you into this little lobby area. So this is something that you would kind of want to set up as a no combat area, right? Build yourself a little bunker and stick it under your map somewhere, a pub, a bar, or whatever. And it's just a place where players can go congregate and they can just run around and look at each other, but they can't really play a mission. The key thing to remember about this would be that you would want this set up in such a way that the only way in the lobby or out of the lobby is via this menu by changing the team and selecting a team. Because if you do add combat and they happen to get in here, they're going to kill everybody in the lobby, right? So technically this functions sort of like a third team. But I just chose to do it as a little, build you a spaceship up in the sky that you can't get to except by joining it via the menu, and you can just hang out in there or whatever. And that's essentially what this is. Now, there is one other thing that I want to mention here before I hook another player up. So let me actually go back to the main menu, and I'm going to host a game. And this time, the very first thing I'm going to do is go straight into the lobby. And you can pick a class, but regardless of which class you pick, it's going to show up as the default, the UE4 logo is your class icon. You see it in the lower left corner. And the name of this class is just called the default class. And then you see that you're the dummy, right? So if you connect to the game and you immediately go into the lobby, you're automatically going to be stuck in the default class. Okay. Now, once again, there'll be videos later showing how, well, okay, I don't want the dummy to be the default mesh. I want to change it to something else. I don't want that icon. I want to change it to something else. There will be videos showing how to manipulate this template. Okay. And that's all stuff that's easily changeable and adjustable. And then, of course, you can just leave here. Okay. Now, another thing that I want to point out here is that, this is not, just to be clear here, this is not just simply changing the mesh of the character, right? So you see how this is using this mesh as the biotech. And if I come over here and change it to, say, an engineer, you can see that I now have a completely different mesh that represents what my character is. Just to be clear, this is not just changing the mesh. It's actually giving you a completely different character blueprint. Okay, so all these character blueprints that I'm switching through here are all based off the master character blueprint. These are all child blueprints of the master character. So in other words, you script all the stuff you want your characters to be able to do in the master character blueprint, and then you create child blueprints of those, and you can modify those to make them actually be the class, right? So in other words, you could make the recon have faster movement speed and less health than the dreadnought class, which would be bigger, fatter, slower with more health, right? And all the functionality of the characters can be all kept separate, but not have to re-script it every single time you want to make a new class, right? You can modify the child blueprint, and you can have 4 different engineer classes, for example, and all 4 of those engineers can all have different statistics and movement speeds and weapon loadouts and all that stuff. The reason that I'm clarifying this is because someone told me all I was doing was changing the mesh, right? And that's not what's happening here. You're actually getting spawned a child blueprint, a completely different one. So yes, that's what's happening here. Another thing that I want to point out here is that, let me actually come over here and pick the engineer, and you see the mesh that this character has, and of course his little icon that represents an engineer. Now, if I take this engineer and I switch over to the blue team, it will kill me off the red team, and then I will respawn at a random spawn point at the blue team. But what you're going to notice is I'm not using the same mesh. I'm the same class, I'm still an engineer, I have the exact same icon, but I have a different mesh. Now, the way this is set up is so that you can have different meshes based on not only your class, but your team. So in other words, the blue team can have a completely different mesh than the red team's engineer. So you see how this is the blue team engineer. He's got the little pointy hat on and the shoulder pads, but the representation of the engineer on the red team is the dude wearing cardboard boxes. Now, all these meshes that are put in here, all this stuff is Infinity Blade stuff, and it's placeholder stuff. So what you would really rather think of this as, the red team can be the Germans, and the blue team can be the Americans. You can still have an engineer on the red team that has the exact same type statistics as the blue team on the engineer, or the engineer on the blue team. The difference would be that the blue team version of the engineer would use a American mesh to represent his character. You would have him have American weaponry in his hands instead of German weaponry. So that's the way that this is set up. The classes are still the same, right? But you can make them look physically different so that, you know, when you're on the red team and you're playing as German characters, right? Regardless of whether you're a sniper, an engineer, a dreadnought, or whatever, you're a German. The same counterpart of that on the blue team would be American versions of those. You could also think of it like aliens on the red team and human on the blue team. Still the exact same classes, but they can look different, and you can make them have different statistics if you want. But essentially, it's set up that way. It's so that you can have different, visually looking different characters based on which team you happen to be on. Okay? And so that is essentially it in a nutshell. So now what I'm going to do is actually fire up another instance of this. And this time around, we're going to do find games instead of host. And it will do a search here and it will bring up this server that I have hosted here from this standalone version. And I'm just going to click this, and I'm going to put this dude on the blue team as a biotech. And you'll see that it spawns me in. The exact same thing is true, right? So I have a biotech icon. I have a biotech name. I have a different looking mesh. I'm blue to indicate I'm on the blue team. And if I hit the P key, you will see that now there's 2 players in the player list. One's in the red team category as an engineer, and this one is in the blue team as a biotech, right? Another thing that I want to point out here is that this is Steam enabled. So I'm testing this locally, right? Running individual versions of this on the same computer to test functionality, but this is actually set up to work on Steam, which means that name that you see in this list will actually be your Steam name if you host it a match via Steam. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this menu here. And now when I look at this character over here, I see he's got the box mesh on. I see that he has a engineer icon in his name tag. And then of course it has his name. And then when he looks at me, he sees that I have the biotech icon, my name, and then a different mesh, okay? So when you're on the opposite team, that information above the character is always going to be red regardless. Pay no mind to the colors of these characters. This is just put in here as a visual demonstration. When you're looking at an enemy combatant, their name is, their information is red. That's how you know they're a bad guy. And of course, when he looks at me, my information's in red. Now, if we're on the same team, which team? Okay, so let me switch this guy over to the red team. It will change, and all the name information above the character will be written in green if they're a friendly, right? So see, now that same information is still the same information. It's just displayed in green so that I know that's actually a friendly character and not a bad guy. And then, of course, when he looks at me, the same is true. My information is now same information, just in green, okay? Now, here's what I want to show you guys about the variations of the visuals, right? So I'm on the red team as an engineer. Now, if I take this guy here and put him back onto the blue team, I'm going to go pick an engineer class. This will make more sense, I think, when you guys see this. So if I come over to the station and pick an engineer class, I'm still going to have the same icon, and it's still going to say I'm an engineer, but you can see that that is what the red team engineer looks like. This is what the blue team engineer looks like. Same class, just different teams, so they will visually be able to look different. Okay? And yeah, that's essentially it. That is the template in a nutshell. Okay, now also this template does have a match ended screen that comes up. I don't know if I'm going to sit here for the full 5 minutes for this match to be over. But here's what happens. Okay, so when you're in a standalone or a packaged build, since there's no way to score in this template, even though the logic is in there that you guys could add something to make it increase the score, what happens is when that timer reaches 0, it looks at the score, and if they're equal, it will pop a screen up and say that the match ended in a tie. Then after a small duration, it will take the server, the host of the mission, the host of the game, and all the connected clients, and it will take them to map 2, test map 2. When that timer reaches 0, it will take the server and everybody else back to test map 1. So I included 2 test maps in here, really just to demonstrate map travel, seamless travel, how server travel works. Now this is more relevant in the capture the flag template, but it's still in this template as well. And that's all it does, is it flip-flops the map. At the end of the mission, if you're on map 1, it takes everybody to map 2. At the end of map 2, when the timer expires, it takes everybody back to map 1. Or alternately, now here's what I was mentioning earlier. When I hit the tab key as a client, you see that I don't have those options to change the time limit or make the map travel. Okay. But the server, on the other hand, he can, right? So when I change this map timer, let me just change it to 30 minutes and hit set new time. Now you see the time is 30 minutes, and it's also updated on the clients. But I can manually come in here and say, okay, we're on test map 1, so I'm going to change this to test map 2 and hit travel to map. And now when we spawn in here, you can see that written over there, it says test map 2. And I pumped some hills up in this terrain to make it not look the exact same. And it brought this guy with me. So I can now put him back on the blue team. And now we're both back on map 2. So that's what happens when that timer hits 0. It essentially just flip-flops the map. And it brings everyone. Okay, so that's the end, right? That's the end of the overview video. I think I've covered all the features. This is currently $5.99. It is available now on the UE4 Marketplace. This version, the updated version, is now available. So I hope you guys enjoy this rebuild. For all you guys that have bought this in the past, you guys know that when we got to a certain engine version, I don't remember which one it was, but it broke my template all to crap. And so I did a rebuild, a complete rebuild of the capture the flag template. Is actually the first one that I did. So it got a complete re-overhaul. And then I went ahead and redid this one too. The biggest difference is that I reduced the cost to $5.99 from $9.99, so it's cheaper. And I think functionally, both templates now work a whole lot better. And as a bonus, they conform with each other. Right, so there'll be videos coming in the very near future showing how you could buy the $5.99 teams and class select and the $5.99 capture the flag and migrate them together and get them working so that you not only have teams and class select, but you also have the capture the flag mechanic. And then, of course, from there, then you could build your combat system on top of that and have a class-based PvP capture the flag game. If you want, or you could make it into some kind of a co-op game or whatever. But I intentionally left the combat system out because that tends to overcomplicate things, and it also makes it more expensive. But just to be clear, there are going to be some more templates of mine that are not currently on the marketplace that will be, that are going to combine all these things plus more together to actually have a template that not only has teams, class select, capture the flag, but it also has combat systems, auto turrets, health and ammo pickups, weapon switching, and all that stuff. But those are not ready, right? It's going to be a while for that. So I hope you guys enjoy this update. If you guys find anything that breaks all the crap, be sure and let me know. And with that, you guys take care. This is John Galt, and we will see you guys in another video in another time. Have a good one, fellows.